Good people, ladies and gentlemen, it's your favorite mood boy's favorite mood boy, Peanut.
And your girl, Prin, and we are coming to you with Candid Conversation with Peanut and Prin. Hey, handsome.
Hey, beautiful, how are you?
I am good. So you know I'm excited tonight, right?
I would assume so. I can understand why. You're bubbling over. You're bubbling over.
I'm definitely bubbling over.
Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if this is your first time with Candid Conversation with Peanut and Prin, we are a podcast that talks about all sorts of topics, and our goal is to keep it candid. But tonight, we have a special guest. We have the author, the educator, the activist.
Talk about it.
Dr. J is in the studio with us tonight. Let me get her on screen. Hey.
Hi, you have me smiling over here.
So welcome to Candid Conversation with Peanut and Prin. And tonight we actually are going to talk about your latest project.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. J has had the amazing opportunity to share with the world a book called Copeology. But Dr. J, tell us about Copeology.
Yeah, well, thank you. First I want to thank you, Peanut and Prin, for having me on the show tonight. And so you want to hear about this book named Copeology. So first I have it with me. The last time I spoke about it, I didn't have it with me. So my family were like, where was the book? So here is the book right here, Copeology.
Nice.
Excellent.
This book is an anthology, which are short stories from myself and 6 other authors. And the goal of this book, we are teaching people how to cope with life stresses, particularly during this time, during a pandemic, using their spirituality, and we're giving them counseling tips at the back of the book. So if you're dealing with anxiety, depression, managing survivor's guilt, dealing with relationships, there's actual tangible counseling related tips in the back of the book.
Cool.
Oh, wow. Okay. Cool. So, I have now read your story in the book.
Okay.
And as I was reading your story in the book, because I don't want to give it away, you guys have to go out and get it. I promise you, it is a great Mother's Day present. It is a great Valentine's Day present. Yes. So I'm just already endorsing the book because I think it's a great tool for anybody that is, at a place in their life where maybe they are struggling with some life struggles. Mm-hmm. But then it's also something to have on your bookshelf for when that struggle comes.
Yes.
And you need a resource to go to.
You got it. That is so true. Yes. You read that book. And you probably wrote something in it as well, too.
No, I did. I will be honest. I did write an entry in the book. So I am one of the featured authors.
Oh.
But Dr. J, I want to tell us about your experience. Like, what was it like for you to do the project and work with so many amazing people?
Yeah, for me, it was fun. It was a lot of fun because first and foremost, I handpicked who I wanted to be part of this project. And the majority said, yes, let's do it. And then it was also a spiritual journey as well, especially when it was time for me to write and talk about my story and share. But then also I was able to motivate others, as a professional counselor, that's part of what I do is motivate, my individual clients. But in this case, my friends who, wrote in this book, sometimes they needed like an extra, like, yeah, you can do this. Like, tell your story. I know your story. You're like, this is going to be great. And after everyone did it, the majority said, oh my gosh, this was like cleansing to like get my story out. It was almost like journaling, let me say. Mm-hmm. But we were, including myself, brave enough to talk about personal things that everyday people struggle with, like we are, and put it out there. Because once you write that story, that journal, and it is published, it is published. And so it took a lot of courage and encouragement to work with all of the authors for us to work on this project. It took a couple of months actually to complete as well.
Okay.
Okay, so sounds like it was very therapeutic for everybody that was involved, but as well as it being therapeutic, it also sounds like it was a way to get some weight off your shoulders.
I would say so.
Within your own experiences. So what I wanted to know was what was the motivation behind wanting to put out such a book of works or anthology, as you would say, to inspire people? Was it to, free yourself in a sense? What was the motivation behind it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there was two motivations. So one, as the director of the Hope Center of Carmody Hills, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, founded in a Baptist church in Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
I started doing counseling related topics and conversations on a Sunday in church during the sermon, and working in collaboration with the head pastor. So I came up with something that counselor plus clergy equals bibliopsychoeducation. Bibliopsychoeducation is a word that I made up and I had it trademarked. And the word means to combine a small book that's religious based. So that could be the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, any pamphlet or book, combining those morals and ethics with counseling tips to help people cope. So we started doing that like the first Sunday of every month, and it kind of just blew up, and other churches kind of wanted to gravitate to that. And so there's a journey there, there's a story there. And so that was the motivation of the book, to kind of like put this story out there. But at the same time, having people be able to share their stories, willingly, of how their spirituality worked with them to cope. So the whole book is, I would say, it's almost like two parts. It's these stories along with the counseling tip. And so the book itself, I'm displaying the concept that I made up called bibliopsychoeducation.
Okay.
That was the motivation.
Okay. That is actually extra cool. That's real cool. I mean, it's for somebody like myself, it's relatable because I see somebody that looks like me. And in the times that we are with mental health and mental wellness and all of that that's going on, it is very important to get that information from somebody that looks like you.
Yeah. And I'll add to that. You're right. The other thing too is that people that look like you and that looks like me and that looks like Miss Prin over there, the color of our skin, the nature of who we are is based on spirituality, right? And religion is one way to nurture your spirituality. And so for me, it was important to tap into people's spirituality so that they can continue coping during a pandemic with all the grief, the loss, the changes, the celebrations that happens.
Okay. Good stuff. So I know you on a whole nother level. Like, ladies and gentlemen, this is my cherished business partner. And so I know the Joanne that's off camera. And in knowing the Joanne that's off camera.
Yes.
That was at New York.
In knowing her, I know that this project was a huge deal because it was something that, she had been working on for quite some time. And so I want to hear, what was it like for your mom and your dad to know that this book was out there, or even your kids, because your story, does talk about parenting a little bit. So what is it like for your family?
Yeah, so I'll talk about my parents first. So you know how people say, oh, my biggest fan is X, Y, and Z. My biggest fan is really my mom and my dad. Like, they are on it. They pay attention to videos and interviews, and they're reading the book. And I'm like, oh, y'all are so good. They're like, oh, you're so great. I'm like, Ma, you're just saying that because I'm your daughter. She's like, no, I'm serious. And my father's like, yeah, you're good. So what it's like for the family, the parents especially, they're very excited, right? They're like, oh my gosh, this is great. But I actually feel like the things that I talk about is from them, though. This is like how I was raised. This is what I learned. But then, of course, I went to school and all of that and perfected it. But this is really how I was raised. So that's the parents. But then the kids, right? So I have 3 kids. Um, some of the stories, a little bit will be about them or things that they knew about me, but they really didn't know, or they knew and now they're seeing it in paper. So it's kind of funny when that happens because they'll joke with me, and say, oh yeah, remember, blah, blah, blah. And so like one of the stories that I've written in one of these books, I was writing about my ex-husband, nothing negative, but he called me and he was like, hey, congratulations on this book. I'm going to purchase it. I'm purchasing it now. And I was like, oh gosh, like, but it was good. I didn't say anything crazy or negative, but there is a small piece in there. And, if he identify himself, he'll know, which reminds me when I get off, I'm going to text him and be like, hey, you ever read that part? Like, okay. That's what it's like for my family. My kids always clown because I do a lot of jokes and dancing and just happy spirit at home. And some of my dances and my songs, they're like, Ma, you are watching too much TikTok. So it's stuff like, you want to roll with the big boys, like, you want to chill with the big boys. I don't know if y'all know that song, right? It's a big trend. So I'll be doing the dance and, and they're like, Ma, the TikTok, you got to stop. Like, it's too much. So that's how my kids look at me, right? They just look at me as fun and loving and hardworking and yeah.
Well, cool. Well, honey, how about this? So you know Dr. Joanne very well. Well, guess who knows you very well? I do. And you have an entry in the book as well. So how hard was it, because I know the kind of author that you are. So how hard was it for you to write from a personal standpoint in reference to how you normally write? Because, you had to pull from yourself to get this story out. So let's talk about that. Did it tug at some heartstrings?
So anytime I have to write from the non-fictional place that is within me, I'm always stuck with writing 2 stories. So Dr. J knows this. The original story, we did not publish. We published the second story. And I mean, I'm pleased with the story that we released, but that story just, the one that I actually entered, I felt like it was a little bit more relatable and, people could resonate with the feelings in it. But I'm not going to spoil it because I need you guys to go out and actually get this book. I promise there are some valuable nuggets in it that are going to benefit just about anybody that gets it. But yeah, I mean, my experience of trying to pull from that non-fictional side, it always makes me uncomfortable. It always takes me to the last minute to submit,
Yeah, but what I can say about Prin's entry, when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Like, I never knew this about you. And you can tell you're an author because, like, it was just really flowerful. It was a story. It was smooth. And I also have a colleague that read the book, and he said that the story he most identified with was Prin's. And he is like, I can relate to that because that happened to me. This happened. And he explained it. I was like, oh my goodness. So, again, I'm not giving out the book, the story. You got to get it and read it for yourself.
You gotta go grab it. You gotta go to Amazon, grab the book, man. Copeology. It's some good stories in there. It's good for the soul. It'll help somebody figure some things out or get to a point where they can move on and progress in life where they thought they were stagnant.
Yes, definitely.
It can really help them out. What I mean?
It's funny you just said Grammy. So right when I was backstage waiting to come on, my cousin called me and she was like, "Congratulations, your book is the #1 selling, book. I'm so excited for you." I'm like, "Stop." See, that's how they, gas my head up. And I'm like, "Oh, this is so fine." I said, "Well, it's not #1, but I do think it's number 288,651,
And for those of you that are not in the publishing world and not in the book world, trust me, that is a big deal.
It's funny that Prin says that because we were looking at the numbers and I was like, "Oh, that's a lot." She's like, "No, think about there's 4 million books out there, and this is the." I was like, "All right, yeah, okay, I can see that."
Yeah,
I was like, 2,888, 651.
That's better than being 3.5,
Right,
and below. You might have to talk to somebody about that and figure that out.
right. Got to sit on somebody's couch, right, and figure out like what is going on here.
Okay, so tell me this. Tell me, what do you all expect to get from this book, to achieve with this book, this anthology?
For me, I expect healing.
Mm.
I expect this book to touch lives in a way that people haven't had a chance to be touched. So one of the reasons why I wanted to put stuff like this in a book is because as a therapist, everyone can't afford therapy. And I'm not just talking financially, but their time, the energy, the resources it takes to be in counseling, meaning the emotional energy and readiness for counseling. And because of the world we're living in, I was thinking about, okay, how can I bring products to people who needs the assistant, but they may not, find a therapist and sit down somewhere. So one of that was by having a YouTube channel. I do have a YouTube channel. It's called Ask Dr. Joanne. And we put stuff out there. As a matter of fact, the producer of the channel is looking at me right now. Her name is Prin. So that's the producer. And then the other thing was I thought of a book is always a living document, right? Like it can go all over the place. It can last for a long time. And so people get the book that's affordable. They can always have these tips, this to readiness for when they need it. And I also think that the book is not just my story as a counselor, but other people's story. And I pulled out things and made it counseling or therapeutic tips that people can use. And so that's what I hope to get out of this whole project is healing.
Okay. So I guess if I had to answer that question, what I'm hoping to get out of the book, definitely I see the nuggets that are in the book, like the tips that are in the back. And I always think about the single moms. I think about the people that don't necessarily have a whole lot of the time, because maybe they're scared of what somebody might say if they go to therapy. And so definitely I think them just being able to get a copy of the book and realize or identify that maybe they are feeling some of the feelings that are expressed in this book. And so the ability to just help people, I think, is my whole goal with the book. I'm really excited about it because when I hear people, read it, when I hear people start talking about it and I hear what they get out of it, like I've been reading the reviews, and the things that people are getting out of it, it's doing exactly what I wanted it to do. Because not only did I want it to heal, because that's definitely a major key point, but I just wanted somebody that thought that they couldn't even put themselves in a therapy space, that therapy is for them too. It's for everybody. It's for all of us. It's a right. Like, I really think that therapy should be a right. Don't let me get on my therapy soapbox, because I feel like the Black community, and the people of color, the brown, Black, and, like all of us, not just the Black community, but yellow, brown, whatever color you are. I think that we've all been through some traumas that we're not facing. I think we've all been through some things that we've never talked about. And this book is just the tip of the iceberg of starting to, you know, bring those tools and those tips into the actual households.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And another thing too, as you said, that reminded me, you know, so the word copeology is another word that I created and is trademarked. The cope is, you know, to be able to be resilient or deal with life stressors, and ology is the study of. And so if usually that word ology comes with like what's the word I'm thinking of, when you master something. So
Mm-hmm.
the idea to this is to master coping, so that anything that comes your way, you have the skills and the tools to deal with it. And that's a loss, grief, disappointments, and those tools are in the book. But of course, you know, there's lots more tools, but there's enough tools in there and stories to help cope.
Okay. So what it sounds like to me is Copeology is a book for everybody to read. And what you'll gain from it is everybody can't afford therapy, right? But this book is very therapeutic. So
Yes.
in this book, if you find a story that's relatable to you, or a situation that you've been in, or something that you've experienced, it's actually some encouragement that you too can get through it. You got to speak those words, get it off your chest, you know, own up to it, or whatever the case may be, and push forward. And it's actually a way of giving people hope, you know, as a means to push forward in reference to being a black man in America today. You
Yes.
know, loss and grief, infidelity, whatever the
Yes.
case may be. So
Yes,
this is
definitely.
actually a good book for everybody to read because we've all dealt with something.
Right.
You
Definitely. Definitely.
know,
So,
whether we want to admit it or not, we've all dealt with something. This could
mhm,
be a good start to heading in the right direction.
definitely. So, Peanut, you know, I'm smiling and I'm laughing because you sound like a mental health provider. Like, you summarize well, you're putting it out there, and it's just refreshing to see a man, particularly a black man, just kind of sharing and can gravitate to this and just, you know, put it out there.
Yeah,
Appreciate
well, you know, in all honesty, the truth of the matter is, it took a while for me to get to this point. But then growing up and becoming a man, you understand and realize that, you know, what we've learned as kids or young adults or growing up is not always necessarily the end all be all. The one thing
Yes.
that I told my oldest boy today is everybody's got to talk to somebody. If
Mhm.
you don't, you carry that weight around with you, and that weight can turn into a negative thing.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it can cause you to make emotional decisions that'll
Yeah.
put you in a bad situation, no matter where you are in life.
Definitely.
So therapy is one of the best things that, you know, I could have ever thought of. But
Yeah.
if I'm honest, I had never wanted to go because I
Yeah.
didn't want to mind my business. But that was, you know, that was put in me as a young man.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I think it's a great thing that you're because it's a small book. The stories aren't long. You can get in and you can get out. But once it grabs you and you relate to it, it puts you in a totally different direction, which is an opportunity for change and improvement.
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to talk more on something you just said about, if you don't let it out, you carry that weight with you. And if you think about it, why would you want to carry a weight by yourself? Wouldn't you want to share it? Wouldn't you want somebody to help you carry this weight? And so
Hmm.
that's what therapy does, or even just talking to someone about issues, like, help me carry this weight.
Yeah. I mean, we'll be surprised once you say it and get it out. All
Yeah,
right. You can
yeah,
move
drop
on.
it.
You know,
Yeah,
you let that go. You let that
yes.
go. So that's a very important thing. And I think
Hmm.
therapy does that for people.
Yes.
Excellent. So, Dr. J, can you go ahead and share with us your social media tags of where people can connect with you?
Definitely. So, um, first and foremost, that Ask Dr. Joanne YouTube show to see more of the work we do. And then social media wise, I have a web page. It is www.jflcounseling.org. I have an Instagram page. It is Instagram, you know, that sign, the @ sign, JFL Counseling. And then also on Facebook, it's JFL Counseling. And then also, you know, people can always reach via email, which is Dr. Joanne at jflcounseling.org.
Yeah.
That's it. Yes.
All righty. So I want to thank you for coming on to Candid Conversation and talking about Copeology. It has been a true gift and a treat to have you on the show with us this evening. Peanut, did you have any final thoughts?
I do have some final thoughts. I would say this to all my people out there, all the listeners, all the Move Boy fans, everybody watches Candid Conversations with Peanut and Prin. What's more important than fashion and cars and, anything else that you can imagine, even wealth, is mental health. If your mind ain't right, nothing else ain't gonna be right behind it. You know what I'm saying? Yes. So mental health is more important than anything you can imagine, because once your mind's right, you can achieve anything.
Wow. Well said. Well said.
And until next time, keep your conversations candid.
Peace.
I like that. Thank you.
Are you trying to cope with life struggles? Are you in need of more support? Do you want to learn how to use your spirituality to cope with life stressors? Then this anthology is for you. It covers how to deal with grief and loss, being a Black man in the world today, disabilities, surviving COVID-19, infidelity, anxiety and fear, trauma, and single parenting. Copeology. Available now on Amazon.com.